Okay, Betsy. Yeah. Yeah.
So beautiful live shot we got going on. The sky cover, a little bit more clouds and blue sky. But hey, don't worry, stick with us here. Stick with us. It's going to change as the day goes on. 63 in Central Park right now. Nothing in the way of rain, yes. And then those temperatures. Comac, you're waking up at 63-degree temperatures. West Hampton Beach at 61. A little chilly out in Hampton Bays at 58. Merrick, you're at 66. Roslyn at 62. And then we look down at the Jersey Shore, Belmore, 62 as well. Andover at 64. And 66 in Poughkeepsie. So not too bad to start our day. Next 12 hours will be in the way of more sun. 72 is going to be our high. We'll get around 3 o'clock this afternoon. And that sky cover, those clouds are going to go away. And it is going to be lovely. We'll have that sun setting at 8:11 tonight. We will see one. And we'll see it for the next couple of days, too. I'll have all those details and later on in the broadcast. Guys, back over to you.
All right, thanks so much. We'll take the series. Heading back to the Garden today. Game 7 kicks off in just a few hours to see who advances to the Eastern Conference Finals, the Knicks or the Pacers. If you do not have $36,000 for a ticket, we'll be...
He was pronounced dead 20 minutes after this incident happened. For much of the morning, from about 4 to 8:30 this morning, there was an investigation by police. They were looking for video just to piece together how all this happened. And the working theory, again, is that that 24-year-old man was walking east to west on the Van Wyck, which goes north and south. An NYPD highway officer is responding to an incident, hits him, remains on the scene. That officer is doing just fine today. So latest live along the Van Wyck Expressway incident between John Miles Miller. Weekend today, New York.
Okay, Miles, thank you. And now to a developing story out of Brooklyn where one person is dead, another in the hospital after shots ring out in Brownsville. Neighbors in that area tell News 4 they're just so sick and tired and frustrated with all this crime.
It's time we start doing something different, man. It's a sad thing to see in the community. Yeah, that's a tragic loss. Stop the violence.
Shit, I'm so fucked.
Stop the violence.
The shooting happened just before 11 o'clock last night on Osborne Street near Pitkin Avenue. Police say a 30-year-old was shot multiple times and died at the hospital. A 28-year-old was hit in the left hand. No word yet on what led up to that shooting, and police haven't made any arrests. And in Queens, police trying to identify a body that was pulled from the waters of Flushing Bay. Very disturbing discovery made at the World's Fair Marina. Police say the body of a 35-year-old man washed up along the shore of Flushing Bay. not far from City Field just before 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon. It's unclear how the man died, and police are waiting to hear from the medical examiner's office on the cause of death. And new this morning, a woman was slashed on the subway on the Lower East Side just before 7 o'clock this morning at the station at the corner of Delancey and Essex Streets. Police say she was standing on a platform when she was slashed in the leg. Investigators say the suspect fled on the J train. The victim is expected to be okay.
Delancey Street.
And another investigation underway in Queens after a 5-year-old boy was struck and killed by an SUV in College Point. Police tell us the driver was going south on 124th Street near 20th Avenue just after 6 o'clock yesterday evening when the boy ran out into the street and the car struck him. He died at Jacoby Hospital. A playground next to the crash scene has neighbors concerned.
This is crazy because the speed park they need to be parked all over the park. Because my grandson plays in the park, she plays in the park, children next door play in the park, next door there's more babies playing in the park. They need to do something because this could have been avoided.
The driver, a young woman, did stay at the scene, and authorities have not said whether they believe she was speeding. Well, the man charged with punching actor Steve Buscemi has been arraigned. Prosecutors say 50-year-old Clifton Williams also punched another man just about 10 minutes before Buscemi was hit. That was on May 8th in Kips Bay. The other victim, a 22-year-old man, was attacked in the Gramercy Park area, and the judge yesterday set bail for Williams at $50,000. Police arrested him on Friday, they say, after a dispute at a Chelsea homeless shelter led them to him. Williams is charged with misdemeanor assault in the first attack and felony assault in Buscemi's case because he is 66 years old and is considered to be a senior citizen. Well, an unexpected party crasher showed up at Rudy Giuliani's 80th birthday party with a special delivery from Arizona's Attorney General. Giuliani was served with an indictment on charges of conspiracy to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in Arizona, and this makes him the final person among a long list of co-defendants to be served in that case. Weekend Today New York's Ida Siegel has the details.
Rudy Giuliani was all smiles at an early birthday party in Palm Beach Friday. The former mayor is set to turn 80 at the end of the month. The party was live streamed. But the celebration became news when it was marred by a special delivery from the Arizona Attorney General. Giuliani received an indictment in connection with an alleged conspiracy to overturn the 2020 election in Arizona. A spokesperson for Giuliani said in a statement, the mayor was served after the party, and as he was walking to the car, he was unfazed and enjoyed an incredible evening with hundreds of people from all walks of life who love and respect him for his contributions to society. We look forward to full vindication soon.
If they want our country back, do you want your country back?
Before receiving the indictment, Giuliani appeared to taunt the Arizona Attorney General on X, saying in a now deleted tweet, if Arizona authorities can't find me by tomorrow morning, 1, they must dismiss the indictment. 2, they must concede they can't count votes. Just over an hour later, Attorney General Chris Hayes tweeted, the final defendant was served moments ago. Rudy Giuliani, nobody is above the law. 17 other people had already been indicted, 8 of whom were shown in mugshots. Donald Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, was also indicted. All are accused of pressuring Arizona legislators and the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors to change the outcome of Arizona's election, encouraging Republican electors to vote for Trump.
And that was Ida Siegel reporting. Giuliani is charged with conspiracy, fraud, and forgery. He's expected to appear in court for arraignment on Tuesday. A halal meat expert is set to return to the stand tomorrow in the Bob Menendez corruption trial in Manhattan. On Friday, James Brett Tate told jurors that Menendez's co-defendant, Wael Will-Hana, paid bribes to get the New Jersey senator's help to secure an overseas halal meat inspection business with the Egyptian government. At the time, Menendez was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee and oversaw hundreds of millions of dollars in aid to Egypt. On the stand, the Department of Agriculture official said that Hana, who was a friend of Menendez's wife, Nadine, won the deal over 7 other firms who were competing for it. Tate added that the deal raised legal questions of fair competition Menendez, his wife, and 2 businessmen have all pleaded not guilty. Another businessman has pleaded guilty to the charges and is expected to testify against Menendez. And happening tomorrow, Michael Cohen's expected to be back on the witness stand when the criminal hush money trial of Donald Trump resumes. During a cross-examination on Thursday, Trump's defense attorney portrayed Cohen as a man who's been driven by revenge. The jury hearing an audio tape of Cohen on a podcast calling for the former president to, quote, rot inside. The defense also accused Cohen of lying after saying he spoke by phone with Mr. Trump just days before the 2016 election, informing him that a deal to pay off Stormy Daniels, the porn film star actress, would be done. Cohen has now spent a total of 14 hours on the witness stand. Mr. Trump denies any relationship with Stormy Daniels and any wrongdoing in connection with those charges of falsifying business records. And coming up here on Weekend Today, on this Sunday morning, it's a wrap for season 49 of Saturday Night Live. And host Jake Gyllenhaal delivered. Next, we'll give you some funny moments and his big musical number.
And a time lapse from this morning from Manhasset shows the gray skies that we started with and the blue skies that we're seeing over the past couple of hours. Much better there. Yes, the blue skies are back. How long will it stick around? And what about this warm-up? We're going to talk about that coming up in your full forecast after the break.
Spring is in full bloom, and so is allergy season.
Did you know there's only one person in New York City tracking the pollen count?
Storm Team 4's Matt Berkman shows you how he does it and what you can expect this season. Tomorrow morning at 6.
On New York Live, a global favorite finally comes to Manhattan. We'll take a sip out of Nana's green tea. Plus, Three-Body Problem star Rosalind Chao on the new play What Became of Us. And from FBI, Jeremy Sisto joins us live on New York Live at 11:30.
The quality of our choices affects the quality of our lives. So when it comes to how you choose to see a doctor or the #1 orthopedic specialist in the world, backed by a team who custom tailored your treatment. Do you choose to live with limitations or live life to the fullest by going to the place that's #1 at getting people back to what they love? Choose better, move better. HSS.
It's the summer of $9.99 at Bob's.
And this Memorial Day weekend, we're celebrating in all of my 176 stores.
You will not believe what $9.99 gets you at Bob's.
So come party like it's $9.99 this Memorial Day weekend.
Oh my God! Con Edison is embarking on what's next, tripling our investment in energy efficiency programs, so households, buildings, businesses, and intrepid explorers can keep moving into the cleaner energy future.
George Latimer is putting people ahead of personal agendas and delivering real progressive results. George Latimer is investing hundreds of millions to rebuild our infrastructure. He banned gun shows and reduced gun violence. And George Latimer signed the Reproductive Health Care Facilities Access Act to protect abortion rights. In Congress, George Latimer will take on MAGA extremists, and he'll work with President Biden to keep delivering progressive results. UDP is responsible for the content of this ad.
At St. Francis Heart Center, we're not just regional heart experts. We share our greater success with the world. We don't just pioneer technology. We do it more than anywhere on Greater Long Island. And we don't just win awards. We deliver greater outcomes for people like you. As New York's only specialty designated cardiac center, we're not satisfied with just being good. This is Long Island. This is St. Francis Heart Center. And Greater lives here.
You're watching Today in New York with Pat Battle and Gus Rosendale. The most accurate forecast with meteorologist Rafael Miranda. This is Today in New York.
Saturday Night Live signed off season 49 last night after Jake Gyllenhaal hosting for a third time and resurrecting a Grammy Award-winning 90s tune during his monologue. Kenan Thompson can rap. It seems like that, right? This rendition of Boyz II Men's End of the Road striking a chord with the cast, especially Peter. She claimed about how this most recent season is one of the top 48 seasons of the show. It's 49, right? After starting on such a high note, Gyllenhaal later returned as an NYPD sergeant, telling the bad guys to stop attacking character actors after the assault on Steve Buscemi in Kips Bay last week.
So, to everyone watching, I have one important message. Stop punching character actors in the face. But Sergeant, wasn't that just one isolated incident? Unfortunately, this follows similar assaults on Rick Moranis and the shockingly versatile Michael Stuhlbarg.
Gyllenhaal spent the rest of that sketch highlighting other character actors. Let's see that in with an appearance from John Hamm, who asked him if he should be worried about a random attack on Gyllenhaal. Well, this week's special musical guest is Sabrina Carpenter, SNL season 50. Kicks off in the fall. 50. 5-0.
Oh boy.
The 5-0.
Wow. Very big.
Oh, yeah. Multiple, you know.
What episode are you going to be on?
All right, let's talk about this weather.
Let's talk about it.
Finally.
Yeah, it's turning around. Second half of the weekend, that's the better half. For sure, we're seeing that already. We've had lots of cloud cover. Now we're seeing some blue skies down the Jersey Shore. A little bit of mist still around, a little bit of patchy fog, a lot of moisture in the air. But Seaside Heights looking good along the boardwalk. Folks having a nice stroll there or a bike ride this morning. And yeah, some people are even camped out on the beach already, getting their spot for what's going to be a pretty good day ahead with a mix of sunshine and clouds. By the way, don't forget the sunscreen. You can already burn this time of year. You do need it, even on a partly cloudy day like today. From the shore to the Hudson Valley we go. Here's a live look at Clary. The scenes there. Some of that crisp blue sky. You can tell it's going to be a great day for a hike in the Catskills, the Adirondacks. Temperature starting out there in the comfy 50s. All right, visibility is just great. We had some patchy fog earlier, especially out west that is dissipating right now and mixing out nicely. But yesterday we had rain again, so 10 wet weekends so far this spring alone. Since March 1st, we've had 10 weekends that have featured rain in them. 2 have been dry, only 2 so far. So yeah, it has been a rough go. We're turning it around, and maybe next weekend, not including Monday and Memorial Day, Saturday and Sunday, could be another dry weekend. Now the temperature trend has been chilly. We've had high temperatures generally in the 60s for the past few days. A few days in the low 70s, but yesterday the high was 69. That was below average. We've been below average, but it's a big pattern change coming our way. We go right from the chilly stuff into summertime heat. And yeah, I'm talking about 80s. I'm not talking about dry heat this time. You will notice the mugginess creeping up day by day. So by Monday, especially Thursday, you're going to start hearing complaints about, it's not very nice outside. I'm feeling sticky. Until some storms knock away some of that humidity heading into the weekend, which so far is looking like it gets off to a pretty good start. I know a lot of you like to get a jump on the holiday weekend. Friday looks like it could be a beach day, Saturday as well, and then it does cool down a bit as we head into Sunday, especially for Monday, Memorial Day. That may change a bit. We'll keep an eye on the forecast for sure. Pollen levels are up again, just like yesterday, so tree and grass pollen. We're dealing with them. No rain to wash them away, so that's kind of the flip side of the dry weather this time of year. And you get the dry pollen weather going for the next few days. 84 on Wednesday and Thursday. And then we're looking at a beautiful start to the holiday weekend, Friday and Saturday. Notice those temperatures cooling back down into the low 70s by the end there. And we could see some showers Memorial Day Monday, Pat. But I think we'll take the majority of the weekend being dry and pleasantly warm over rainy and cold like we have seen in the past. Back to you.
I know what I'm doing.
Thank you. Well, it is Game 7 inside the Garden today for the Knicks as they fight to advance to the next round of the playoffs. But first, they got to get through the Indiana Pacers. Here's John Chandler with a look at what the Knicks need to do to get the job done.
Yes.
Good morning. The Knicks season boils down to today. Game 7, do or die. The Knicks need all hands on deck for this one, too, even if they are dragging their way to get there. Josh Hart is questionable with that abdominal strain. OG Anunoby is also questionable, but this is an upgrade, and he plans to test his hamstring strain in shoot-around later this morning. Having Anunoby back could make the difference for the Knicks against the Pacers. He is maybe the Knicks' most important player not named Jalen Brunson. Of course, This Game 7, this is Brunson's moment. The Knicks might need another 40-point masterpiece from their superstar to reach the Eastern Conference Finals through Game 7 of the Pacers. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver was at Barclays Center along with a record crowd for the New York Liberty Saturday. Caitlin Clark was in Brooklyn, and she helped the WNBA set another mark, too. Ticket revenue said to be over $2 million for this game alone. Barclays Center was full and could not get enough of Caitlin, the Indiana Fever's #1 pick. Hit her logo threes. She scored 22 points. She dished 8 assists. When I asked her afterwards about facing Sabrina Ionescu, she talked about picking up good habits from facing the Liberty All-Star. Those two traded threes. Stewie led everyone with 24 points, and Clark soaked in the 17,000 plus in Brooklyn. The Liberty beating the Fever 91-80. With Clark selling out games this year, the WNBA should top the $200 million in estimated revenue from last year. But think about this. Juan Soto's next contract might be worth more than double that. Soto says his door is open if the Yankees want to talk long-term deal, and then he reminds them why they should really have that talk. Soto ties the game at 1 with this first-inning homer, and then in the third, Giancarlo Stanton flexes, and this has gone to right center for his 11th of the season. And in the fifth, Soto would join that club. Soto yanking #2 on the day and #11 on the year out to right. What a day for Juan Soto. And all of this run support, it was plenty for Luis Gil. He struck out 14 batters. That's a Yankee single-game rookie record. He was 5-1 thanks to a 6-1 Yankees win. What a day for Luis Gil. In Miami, we go straight to the ninth. Mets up 2 on the Marlins when JD Martinez stays hot, shopping at the gap here for an RBI double. And the Mets would lead this 9-5 going into the bottom half. Just hand the ball to Edwin Diaz and call it a win, right? Nope. The struggling closer gave up 4 in the ninth, and the Marlins capped the comeback in the 10th here on Nizal Lopez walk-off single. An absolute crusher of a loss for the Mets. 10-9, the final. And you watched it here on NBC4 Saturday. Another thriller of a finish at the Preakness Stakes. Kentucky Derby winner Mystic Dan, the jockey there in green, charging through the mud in second, but could not catch Seize the Gray. There will be no Triple Crown chance this year after Seize the Gray takes the second leg at the Preakness. And that's your look at sports. Have a great Sunday. For Today in New York, I'm Josh Hammer.
And so ahead on this Sunday morning, The Wiz is back. For the first time in decades, the Black retelling of The Wizard of Oz is on Broadway. And we'll tell you what makes this production so special this time around when we come back. You're watching Weekend Today in New York.
When I go in, crank that little stuff, drop those beans, and watch it transform. That's a really good feeling. The best part of owning a business is doing this together. When we decided to turn our passion into a business, M&T was our first call. M&T, that's when they made us feel that they had our back. That means everything. I hope M&T Bank is ready to continue growing with us. We're not stopping.
In the next 30 seconds, 250 couples will need to make room for a nursery. 26 people will go all in. This family will get 2 bathrooms. And finally, one vacationer will say,
Yeah, whew, I want to live here.
but as the euphoria subsides, the realization,
house.
don't worry, just sell and buy in one move and start with Open Door. Wow. Oh yes. Start wallcash.com.
Stanley Steamer is founded as a leader in deep cleaning, cleaning over 1 million homes and businesses across America every year using powerful equipment custom built by us. We'll remove the buildup of dirt, dust, allergens, grime, and contaminants seen and unseen from your home and business. America's professional deep cleaner for over 75 years. It's not clean until it's Stanley Steamer clean.
It's never easy to hear you have cancer, but knowing where to go for treatment
makes all the difference.
Most cancer centers have general oncologists, but at Hackensack Meridian John Theurer Cancer Center, we have world-renowned subspecialists.
In the exact cancer
In this house, I
not
don't
just
just
getting a cancer center. We are getting New Jersey's premier cancer center.
And the nation's only multi-state NCI-designated cancer consortium. Know the difference. Hackensack Meridian John Theurer Cancer Center.
To date, Better Give a Hero has recovered over $11 million. How much will you save? Watch Better Give a Hero on News 4 New
Wiz just captivating audiences on and off the stage. The production capping off an eventful Broadway week on the Today Show on Friday. Weekend Today New York's Romney Smith shares how the cast and crew managed to ease on down the road to Broadway.
It's The Wizard of Oz, but with a twist. The Wiz is back on Broadway. This modern production highlights Black culture and showcases the classic characters of Dorothy, the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow.
They are all different in their own right, but all special. And they still fit, and they still respect each other, and they still give each other space to exist and to love each other and to get what they want out of themselves and out of the group too.
The cast includes a mix of veterans and relative newcomers.
You were discovered on TikTok and now you're on Broadway. How does that feel?
Oh my gosh, it feels pretty insane. I mean, who would have thought that social media would lead me here? But here we are today.
Making his Broadway choreography debut, Jaquel Knight says The Wiz motivated him to creatively build characters and movement to push the story forward.
It was a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little hot sauce from over here, a little seasoning salt from that, and really to give it a well-rounded experience.
The cast and crew hopes the audience will feel their energy and joy and take home some life lessons.
Whatever you're going through, there is still something inside of you that is the answer. And you have to always look outwardly. Sometimes you have to look inwardly and realize that just believing in yourself is enough.
And just like Dorothy on the Yellow Brick Road, never forgetting home.
Home is inside of you and all of us, and that you can do it. So dream big and go there and look like one, look like girl.
Romney Smith, Weekend Today in New York.
The Wizard of Oz never gets old in the man was born. We'll be right back with the final Today in New York.
How did we hear about MJHS?
We know the Brooklyn ladies.
Okay,
And I know you're older than me. 3 weeks, really.
My mom had MJHS home care, and when her health took a turn, I turned to them again. They explained hospice and provided great care. After my old one, I'm still here. We have an MJHS nursing home. They're like an old friend who's always there for you. There's nothing like an old friend. A really old friend. Oh, like 4 weeks.
MJHS, leading the way to great care.
Did you bring your truckload of magic? Indeed we did. Follow me. Hey, look, right. Just like playing a video game, but in real life. Yes. When we bring a truckload of magic to your house, that magic is yours to keep. You'll be able to feel it every day. Big, open rooms without clutter, and that feeling of fresh air freedom. Call 1-800-GOT-JUMP.
Choose Optimal Mobile or pay the price. Switch and save over 50% on your mobile bill versus Verizon and AT&T. Plus, plans start at just $15 a month. Enjoy service on America's largest 5G network. So large it has more coverage than Verizon and AT&T combined. Get Optimal Mobile plans starting at $15 a month with no contracts. Choice is clear. Choose Optimal Mobile and start saving big. Call or visit the store today.
T-Baby, a legend, the greatest of all time. Simone Biles. When you hear that name, you think about power, talent, triumph, and struggle.
She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders.
And now, she's back. And in so many ways, she's stronger than ever. This summer in Paris, go make history again. Simone.
Finally, a well-deserved holiday warm.
On a weekend. And we have many days coming our way, Pat, with 80s and sunshine and all that good stuff. Maybe even next week. Before today, we're going to enjoy clouds and sunshine, 73, a little bit warmer, and a lot bit drier. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Overnight tonight, 58 is your low temperature. The winds are going to be on the light side, mostly clear skies. Heading into tomorrow, heading back to Oregon School, of course. Monday is beautiful. If you were checking the patterns, Mondays have been fantastic in terms of weather. It's not your imagination. We joke about it, but here we go again. Mostly sunny and 75. Perfect Monday to call in sick. But you can see in our I'm not recommending that. And you can see in our 10-day forecast, Thursday, that's our chance of showers and storms. But up until then, we're in the 80s, feeling beach weather and summery and humidity and all that good stuff. And it looks like the holiday weekend starts out dry.
Thank you, Ralph. Seriously, thank you. All right. Thank you for spending this part of your Saturday morning with us, folks. Go out and enjoy this beautiful day. For Gus Rosendale and all of us, thank you for having us in for news. Meet the press coming your way next.
Getting beautiful windows with Pella is easy.
And we're confident because Pella offers the Pella Care Guarantee, which covers the product and installation. They perform over 7,000 quality checks in a typical hour.
They really take pride in what they do.
Like us.
We're in the worst overdose crisis in history. More than 6,300 New Yorkers died from overdose in 2022. That's one death every 90 minutes. Coming up on this station, the New York State Office of Addiction Services and Supports will show you the toll being taken by fentanyl. Teens experimenting with substances once and losing their lives. We'll discuss the success of evidence-based treatments available to those living with opioid use disorder and how you can make a difference. It's a special presentation of Addiction, the Next Step.
The Today Show on NBC4 New York is brought to you by Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center.
Mornings are full of possibility and energy, and how you get set for the day ahead matters. It's about getting caught up and getting ahead, because every day deserves the best start.
The Today Show on NBC4 New York is brought to you by Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, because where you're treated first matters.
Getting the right new windows with Pella was simple. Our dedicated Pella advisor was a godsend.
We had confidence in Pella. They sold over 5 million replacement windows and doors.
So we knew the whole team would be on top of every meeting.
The installation was done in just a day.
This Sunday, up for debate.
Make my day, pal.
President Biden and Donald Trump agree to face off on a debate stage.
Hey, this, what time is this?
The earliest general election debate in history.
I just want to debate this guy.
Who will benefit more from the event? And could a third-party candidate qualify? Plus, courtroom campaign.
Can you believe I've been in here for 5 weeks instead of campaigning?
Republican allies and some vice presidential contenders of Donald Trump flock to the Manhattan courthouse in a show of support as the hush money trial is nearing its end.
It's like psychological torture for Donald Trump.
What will the jury decide in the first ever criminal trial of a former president? My guest this morning, Republican Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, and Democratic Governor Chris Moore of Maryland. And undercurrent, Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps opens up about his struggles with depression in our Meet the Moment conversation.
There are times, even though I have a Rolodex of people I can reach out to, there are times where I feel like I'm alone. Still. Yeah.
Joining me for insight and analysis are NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell, Simone Sanders Townsend, former chief spokeswoman for Vice President Kamala Harris, Republican strategist Brendan Buck. Welcome to Sunday. It's Meet the Press.
From NBC News in Washington, the longest-running show in television history. This is Meet the Press with Kristen Welker.
Good Sunday morning. The political world is gearing up for an historic face-off. President Biden and former President Trump have agreed to the earliest general election debate in modern history. Trump, who has been beset by a swirl of legal challenges, is hoping he can prove his case that President Biden is not up for another 4 years. Biden wants to show why, as he argues, Trump is unfit for office. It's also a likely attempt by President Biden to shake up the race.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. Since then, he hasn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal.
If this horrible individual finishes the debate, which I think he will, if he's standing, they'll say it was a brilliant performance. It was a brilliant performance. They've never seen anything like it.
Now, general election debates are the biggest stage for a presidential candidate. More than 73 million people tuned into the first Biden-Trump debate in 2020. Now, as for those legal battles, former Trump fixer Michael Cohen will be back on the stand tomorrow as the first criminal trial of a former president draws to a close. But despite it all, the state of the race remains stagnant. Biden continues to trail former President Trump in several key battleground states. Down by double digits in Nevada and Georgia, states he won in 2020. In Atlanta on Saturday, the president argued Mr. Trump presents an unhinged threat to the country and to the start of the polls.
You hear about how, we're having the polls, so
Meanwhile, on Friday night at a Republican dinner in Minnesota, former President Trump falsely claimed he won the state in 2016 and in 2020. He lost both times.
I thought we won it in 2016. I know we won it in 2020. We gotta be careful. We gotta watch those votes.
At the NRA convention in Dallas on Saturday, Trump again falsely claimed to have won the 2020 election.
FDR, 16 years, almost 16 years. He was short term.
Now, the former president is in the early stages of the search for a money leak. Among the prominent Trump supporters who showed up for court this week in New York, potential running mates dressed like Trump, including North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, Florida Congressman Byron Donalds, and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. Burgum also joined Trump in Minnesota on Friday night.
And they just agreed or something to a vice president debate. I said, how can I have a vice president debate? I haven't even picked a gentleman or a woman yet. I haven't picked. Other people think it's that guy right there. Who the hell knows? He'd be very good. We have a lot of them would be good, Doug, right? We have a lot of good people.
And joining me now is one of those potential vice presidential picks, Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio. Senator Rubio, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Well, let's dive into the state of the race. The last time you were asked about whether you had spoken with former President Trump about being his running mate, you said you hadn't. So can you update us? Have you spoken to the former president about potentially being his running mate?
I haven't spoken to the president. I haven't spoken to anybody in the campaign. The only people that have spoken to me about vice president, for the most part, are members of the media, and which is fine. Look, this is part of the deal. The primaries are over, and so political reporters have to cover politics. And I understand the VP stuff is an interesting horse race question, but there's only one person on this planet that knows who the vice presidential pick is going to be, and his name is Donald Trump, and he's got time to make that decision, and a lot of really good people to pick from. But I've never spoken to anybody on the campaign about it.
Well, let me ask it this way. We have noticed that you have not been on the campaign trail with the former president in recent days. We haven't seen you show up in court. Do you want the job of vice president, Senator?
Well, first of all, I'll do whatever the campaign asks me to do. So I've been at events to help raise money and so forth. We're also in session in Washington, so we've got some work there. We had open hearings this week in the Intelligence Committee, and so we went in. So, that's going on, but I'll be there to be helpful because I want him to win. If Joe Biden, and it's the part of the second answer, is I want to serve the country. I'm not presumptuous to tell you I'm going to be offered anything. As I said, he's got a lot of good people to pick from. Here's what I do know. If Joe Biden is reelected president, the damage to this country, I believe, in some cases will be generational, and some of it will be irreversible. That's how high the stakes are. I cannot imagine another 4 years under Joe Biden as president. And I will do virtually anything to ensure that Donald Trump wins and that Joe Biden does not, because we can't afford as a nation to have another 4 years like the last 3.5.
So, just to put a fine point on it, you would say yes if you were asked to serve as his vice presidential nominee?
Again, that would be presumptuous for me. I think anyone who's offered that job to serve this country in the second highest office, assuming everything else in your life makes sense at that moment, if you're interested in serving the country, it's an incredible place to serve. But I just think this kind of speculation, we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. As I said, we'll find out soon enough, but I've never spoken to anybody about it, so why would I even opine on something I've never spoken to the campaign about?
Okay, fair enough. Well, let's talk about one of the major policy issues of this campaign, the issue of abortion. Senator, would you support a federal abortion ban?
Well, I'm pro-life, and to me, this is not even a political issue. I understand it is for a lot of people, and I understand this is a divisive issue in our country, and not everybody shares my views on it. But I believe that human life is worthy of dignity and protection, and I support laws that protect our unborn human life. I always have, as I've done in the past. When people talk about a federal abortion ban, what they're talking about is the 15-week ban, which Lindsey Graham sponsored and I have co-sponsored in the past. That law is less restrictive or identical to virtually every country in Europe except for 2. Now, the extremists here are the Democrats. Not once, but twice, they have voted in Congress to support a law that basically has no meaningful restrictions. They claim it does, but it has no meaningful restrictions. And I think if we are indeed in this republic, which is what we live in a divisive issue like this, where everybody's views have to be taken into account, it's very difficult to find, if there is such a thing, basically will not vote for any meaningful restrictions on abortion.
Well, of course, the restrictions would be, after 21 weeks, but let me ask it to you this way, Donald Trump
No, that's
says.
not accurate. I'm
But,
sorry, that's not what that bill did. No, I'm sorry, but that's not what that bill did. That bill, it didn't say anything about doctors, it said practitioners. So it didn't have to be a doctor who makes this decision. It didn't say anything about a reasonable harm. It's just a good faith. And so basically, even if it's remote and unlikely, you could still say, and it's not even about, by the way, in the law that they have, it's not even about the life of the mother, it's about the health. So it could be a nurse practitioner or a nurse, or healthcare practitioner, someone needs to define that, and it can be for virtually any reason. So I understand what they claim the bill did, but in practice, that bill had no meaningful restrictions. It was, in essence, a vote, not once, but twice, from Democrats to have abortion at any time for any reason.
Let me just note, though, that less than 1% of abortions take place after 21 weeks. Let me just ask you, though, this.
Then everybody should be in favor of just ban, if they're so rare, then let's just ban them all after 21 weeks. Why are they fighting so hard on that?
Well, because usually if they happen, it's because there is a crisis with the health of the mother. Let me ask you, though, Donald Trump says.
No, but if there's a
not
crisis with the life of the mother, a real crisis, every bill has that restriction in place. Every bill has that exception.
Senator, let me ask it this way. Donald Trump says, quote, he's not signing a national abortion ban. Do you disagree with him on that point?
Well, he won't get to sign one because there's no way we can pass it. I've never claimed we have 60 votes in the Senate and votes in the House and everything else that goes in between. I don't believe any time in that, but I don't support those bills because I think they're actually about to pass. And I think what Trump has actually said is that what he wants to do is negotiate with the Democrats. I think he said it on this program, that he wants to negotiate with the Democrats on this, which I think, in a country where you're trying to save unborn human life, and I support laws that do so, even if they don't have everything we're wanting to have in there, that's his goal. And so, but that's a statement of fact. He will never get a chance to sign that law because right now we don't have the votes to pass it. That doesn't mean that's not what I believe. It's just kind of the reality of the politics.
Well, but he's not talking about whether the votes are there. He has said point blank, he's not signing a national abortion ban. Let me ask you, though.
Because he wants to negotiate with the Democrats on the issue.
He also said on this program that a 6-week abortion ban that was signed into law in Florida, in your state, is a, quote, terrible thing, a terrible mistake. Is he wrong on that point, Senator?
Well, again, I'm pro-life, so I support laws that save unborn human life. Other people have different opinions on what our law should be. That law that you're referring to was passed by elected legislators in the state of Florida. House members that have to go back to their voters every 2 years. It wasn't senators that have to go back every 4 years. And that's the way our republic works. It's a representative democracy, and people have to go back to their voters and justify. I am of the belief that unborn human, I don't want to impose anything on anyone. I get that this is two competing rights here that are crashing into each other, but I err on the side of supporting unborn human life because of the dignity of all human life. That's my view. I want our laws to represent it. Other people have different views, but in our representative democracy, people who have to answer to voters in the state of Florida voted for that, and voters will now get to take that into account in this election and any future election.
Just to put a fine point on it, you are disagreeing with Donald Trump on his opposition to that 6-week ban. You support the 6-week ban?
But I think even within the pro-life movement, there's all kinds of disagreement about what the law should be.
But you
Some of it
support
is
the
practical
6-week
on what we
ban?
can pass.
You support the 6-week ban?
I support any bill that protects unborn human life. But I don't consider other people in the pro-life movement who have a different view to be apostate. They just have a different view about the best ways to approach this issue. We are not like the Democrats, where unless you are in favor of their bills that basically say, let's just put in all this fancy language, but it's not meaningful in terms of any restrictions, you will get Planned Parenthood, for example, who supports all these Democrats, to get their support and NARAL support. You have to be for abortion at any time. I don't care what they say. That's the practical impact of their laws. They are radicals on this.
All right, Senator, let's move on to immigration. If re-elected, Donald Trump has said he's willing to build migrant detention camps and deploy the U.S. military to deport the more than 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country. It would be the largest deportation operation in American history. Do you support that plan?
11 million. That's an outdated. That was the number 10 years ago. We're talking upwards of 20, 25, maybe 30 million.
Well,
There's been almost 10 million people that have entered this country in the last 3 years. So the number varies big time. I mean, it's another 9 to 10 million people just in the last 3 years. The answer to your question is yes. We cannot absorb 25, 30 million people who entered this country illegally. They're here illegally. What country on earth would tolerate that? We don't even know who most of these people are. They talk about vetting them with what? They're coming from nations that don't even have document systems in many cases. Yes, we are going to have to do something, unfortunately. We're gonna have to do something dramatic to remove people from this country that are here illegally, especially people we know nothing about. But 10 million, 11 million, that was the number 15 years ago. Today, it's upwards of probably 25 to 30 million, maybe more.
Senator, here's what you said about Donald Trump's mass deportations proposals in 2016. Take a look.
I don't think it's reasonable to say you're gonna round up and deport 11 million people. I don't think it's a plan that works. I don't think that's a realistic policy.
So why have you changed your mind now?
Because the issue has completely changed. When I said that back in 2013 when I was involved in immigration reform, we had 11, 12 million people that had been here for longer than a decade. Now we've had almost that number in the last 3 years alone from all over the world, including people that I believe are terrorists, people that I believe are going to conduct terrorist attacks in this country if given the opportunity, certainly people that were criminals in their home country. This is a completely different, this is not immigration. You asked me about immigration. This is mass migration. Mass migration. This is an invasion of the country. And it needs to be dealt with dramatically. And by the way, I'm a big poll follower, but polls show most Americans agree with us on this.
And of course, that was an issue under former President Trump as well. There was just a bipartisan proposal that was put on the table that would put more funding into border enforcement as well as limiting asylum. Republicans walked away from that. But let me move on to my next question.
No, we can't move on because that's not what that bill did. That bill also created asylum officers who right on the border will be able to give people asylum. And you give someone asylum right on the border without any appeal, no judge, nothing. Just an asylum officer, they're on a path to citizenship.
Okay.
That's why I oppose that bill.
Your fellow Republicans said it was the best deal that they had seen in a long, long time. But Senator
Which fellow Republican?
Senator Lindsey
Which
Graham,
fellow
just to
Republican
name
said that?
Senator Lindsey Graham, just to
Okay,
name
well then I disagree with Lindsey, that's what he said.
Let me-
I'm not in favor of asylum officers at the border that can issue asylum rulings right at the border.
And Senator James Langford, of course, negotiated. But let me look forward. Will you accept the election results of 2024 no matter what happens, Senator?
No matter what happens? No, it's an unfair election. I think it's gonna be contested by each side.
Senator, no matter who wins.
I think you're asking the wrong person. The Democrats are the ones that have opposed every Republican victory since 2000. Every single one. It's
No
Hillary Clinton
Democrat has
said that-
refused to concede. Hillary Clinton conceded. Senator, will you accept the election results?
Hillary Clinton said the election was stolen from her and that Trump was
But she
illegitimate. Kamala
conceded.
Harris agreed.
Senator, she
We have
conceded the
Democrats
election.
now.
Senator, she
But
conceded
she
the
said-
election.
She said that Trump was illegitimate. She said that the election had been stolen. Kamala Harris agreed. By the way, there are Democrats serving in Congress today who in 2004 voted not to certify the Ohio electors because they said those machines had been tampered with. And you have Democrats now saying they won't certify 2024 because Trump is an insurrectionist and ineligible to hold office. So you need to ask them. I think have you ever asked a Democrat this question on your show? I bet you've never asked a Democrat that question.
Senator, you voted to certify the 2020 election, and here is what you said on that day that you voted to certify the 2020 election.
Democracy is held together by people's confidence in the election and their willingness to abide by its results.
So by your own definition, are Donald Trump's claims undermining Americans' confidence in democracy, given that he has not conceded the last election, and he just said in recent days twice that he won Minnesota, Senator?
I think what undermines people's confidence in the election is when you have places like Wisconsin with over 500 illegal drop box locations, when you have places like Georgia where liberal groups are paying people $10 per vote. No, but listen, what undermines elections is when NBC News and every major news outlet in America in 2020 censored the Biden laptop story, which turned out to be true, not Russian misinformation, unprecedented. Only you couldn't even talk about it on social media. They were deplatforming. People look at all this. They look at what happened in Arizona, 200,000 ballots that had the signatures didn't match. People will lose confidence, and it opens the door to this.
I have to jump in here, Senator. You voted to certify the election, and
because at that stage in the process, you have no options.
Senator, you voted to certify the election. Nothing has been censored on this program. Hillary Clinton
did you guys
did
cover the
concede.
laptop from Joe Biden in
Absolutely,
2020?
Absolutely, we covered the laptop.
It was
and Hillary
bad. You
Clinton
couldn't even
did
talk about
concede.
it in
But bottom
social
line,
media.
Chris Krebs, the top
You couldn't
election
talk about it in
official,
social media.
said
They
it was
deplatform. You couldn't even talk about it because they said it was Russian disinformation.
Senator Rubio.
Voters in many cases didn't even hear about it because it was blacked out by the media.
We did cover the election, and just to note that Chris Krebs, who was a top
And you did
Trump
cover the
election
election, yeah.
official, called it the safest and most secure election in recent history. Senator
But
Rubio,
this
we
is
are
not about
out of
safe
time.
of course we are, but I'm telling you that if it's unfair, we are going to do the same thing Democrats do. We're going to use lawyers to go to court and point out the fact that states are not following their own election
Okay,
laws.
but the Democrats,
Hopefully we'll have a fair
all
election
of
and
those
it'll be
cases, Senator,
unquestioned.
all those cases were brought to court cases and lost, and there was no proof that there was any widespread fraud, as you know. But I
I never used
appreciate,
the word widespread fraud.
I'm sorry. All right, Senator Rubio, thank you very much. I appreciate your time this morning. When we come back, Democratic Governor Wes Moore of Maryland joins me next.
Ay, ay, ay.
When the Warrior Project helped me find the strength to go further than I ever thought possible.
I was able to come out of my shell and really connect with others.
So I can feel like part of a team, part of the community again.
It's possible to live better.
It's possible to have a voice and to be heard.
To feel understood.
To find peace. Because I've experienced firsthand that anything is possible.
I was stuck. Unresolved depression symptoms were in my way. I needed more from my antidepressant. Vraylar helped give it a lift.
Adding Vraylar to an antidepressant is clinically proven to help relieve overall depression symptoms better than an antidepressant alone. And in Vraylar clinical studies, most saw no substantial impact
Oh, I
on
gotta
mood.
get ready.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke, report unusual changes in behavior or suicidal thoughts. Antidepressants can increase these in children and young adults, report fever, stiff muscles, or confusion, as these may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High blood sugar, which can lead to coma or death, weight gain, and high cholesterol may occur. Movement dysfunction and restlessness are common side effects. Stomach and sleep issues, dizziness, increased appetite, and fatigue are also common. Side effects may not appear for several weeks.
I didn't have to change my treatment. I just gave it a lift.
Ask about Vraylar and learn how AbbVie can help you save.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Wayfair by the airplane. Western.
My thing, darling?
Gardening.
Some of us go for the dramatic.
How did I know Wayfair had vanities and tile?
This?
Give me almonds got legs.
You'll flip for the food part.
In the neighborhood, there's a place for all of us.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Welcome back. President Biden delivers the commencement address this morning at historically black Morehouse College in Atlanta. Tonight, he'll address the NAACP's Freedom Fund dinner in Detroit. It will be the 7th event he has held in 4 days, focused on African-American communities and shoring up support among black voters. Biden won 87% of black voters in 2020, but according to an NBC News poll last month, only 71% support him now. No Republican presidential candidate since Richard Nixon in 1960 has won more than 13% of the black vote. The Biden campaign is also concerned about lagging enthusiasm. NBC News correspondent Tremaine Lee sat down with voters in Detroit.
Who among you is definitely going to vote? Raise your hand if you're definitely voting in this election. So just one. So you haven't decided whether you're going to vote or not?
I'm undecided as of right now.
Me and my family, we're Democrat.
I'm not. I don't know who I'm going to vote for.
Joining me now is Maryland Governor Wes Moore, a member of the Biden campaign's National Advisory Board. Governor Moore, welcome back to Meet the Press. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Well, let's start off by talking about African American voters. The polls show there has been this erosion of support amongst black voters, as we just mapped out, and you heard them there say some of them don't know if they're going to go out to vote. Why do you think there is this erosion amongst black supporters?
Well, I think there's a frustration and a cynicism, and I think it's long-standing. You know, we have to remember, my grandfather was born in this country, and he was just a toddler. The Ku Klux Klan ran him out of my family. And I'm understanding as his grandson, as the third governor of the state of Maryland, and only the third African-American ever elected governor in the history of this country. And the reason I bring that up is because history does matter. And so when we look at the fact that in Maryland there's an 8-to-1 racial wealth gap, that's not because one group is working against the other. When we look at the drastic differences in unemployment rates or how cannabis is used as a caution against black communities so long on a nation basis, that's the reality. And so I think that the bigger discussion is showing that when you look at the president doing things like his scheduling candidates from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, having a large component for cannabis convictions, having the largest growth in black and races for black men in 30 years. We now have a president who's actually doing something about it, about these systemic challenges that we face.
Well, and yet some voters feel as though he has not done enough, has not done enough on police reform and voting rights, for example. And you're seeing this show up in the courts where there is this when I talk to Democrats and this erosion of support, this erosion of enthusiasm. What does President Biden need to do? He doesn't have time to change the dynamic.
Well, we know that these challenges have been long-standing and solutions overnight. The thing that I know, though, is I have the right partner that I need in the president. When we think about the work that we are doing, just taking the state of Maryland, by being able to now have the lowest unemployment rate for African Americans in our state's history. The fact that we've been able to increase wages that have had a disproportionate impact on the African American community. These are things that really matter, focusing on work, wages, and wealth. And President Biden has been a partner that all of us have needed and all of us have been asking for to have inside this work.
And of course, the big news this week is that President Biden agreed to debate former President Trump. Right now, there are 2 debates scheduled. They're putting tradition to the side, going around the Presidential Commission on Debates to do it. Do you think President Biden agreed to this debate format to shake up the race?
Yeah, I think he agreed because he's got a record to tell. I think President Biden has a story to tell about how we're creating economic momentum, having historically low unemployment rates by being able to break inflation from what we have from historically high rates, at least in recent history, is the rates. And the leadership is able to show to actually create an economy that benefits everybody. And frankly, I'm looking forward to hearing Donald Trump talk about something other than himself for the first time.
Well, let me ask you about something that unfolded this week. President Biden's decision to assert executive privilege over the audio recordings of his interview with special counsel Robert Mueller.
I gotta get this.
He wasn't charged with a crime. Here is what President
Gotta listen to this.
Hello, this is the office of Dr. Carla Souza, calling Benjamin to remind you of your appointment on Tuesday, May 21st at 12:45 p.m. Please bring a form of identification and your insurance card. If you have not already done so, please send or bring with you all pertinent and recent medical records for the doctor. If you are experiencing any COVID-19 or flu-like symptoms, or if you are aware of any exposure, please call the office. Press 1 to confirm and 9 to cancel this appointment. Thank you for your response. Your appointment has been confirmed. If you have additional questions,
You have the transcripts. Step to be able to offer transfers.
I would have been ready. I'm sorry?
And I got 2, one from AAA and one from her.
Okay. Maybe I erased it.
The idea that this is being done,
Well,
this decision is because of a lack of transparency. It just doesn't hold water because the full transcripts.
Okay, rather than me keep looking.
Everything that they need in order to conduct any investigation that they should choose to do. This is a political game that's playing play right now.
All right, let's talk about the big news in your state. One of the big pieces of news, the Senate race, the former governor,
I was charging that other one because I don't know the volume on this one. I don't know if it's working because I don't know what's going on. Can you please resend
How concerned are you that Larry Hogan
the
throwing his support around codifying
invitation?
Angela also votes the election?
I mean,
Well, I'm excited about Angela Alsop.
I think I might have deleted it.
Early, and I was proud to.
I
And I don't think what the old governor said this week was news, because I think people in our state can be able to distinguish between, what he is saying now that he's trying to get back into politics versus what he did when he was actually in office. This is a person who, when Roe v. Wade fell, under his watch, when he was governor, he vetoed legislation to increase privacy for
I
women.
just charged it. Wait, no.
I need to turn it on.
Wait, hold on, Fred. You want me to do this or you want me to do that?
The old governor wouldn't do it for political reasons. And I think people in our state would be able to notice that what he's saying now is not just disingenuous, but frankly, it's the same type of politics that he rails on. He's actually the prime example of what people are so frustrated about.
I have to ask you about.
You pressed over here?
I know that there's
Yeah, it didn't do anything.
a big development tomorrow.
Oh, what?
Talk to us about that, and
So
also.
I'm calling her landline.
criticism from Republicans
Should
who
be.
are saying they do not want to support federal funding to rebuild the bridge, particularly if it is not matched with.
Oh, it says HP.
Yeah, it's on. It's way for I sent it to the wrong one.
You know, this thing could take
Wait, how could it be?
6 months to be able to the channel. I mean, we have a ship that's the size of 3 football fields that's sitting in the middle of the Patapsco River. And I remember and I Ford to support the families of those 6 Marylanders we lost, to make sure we're supporting all the workers and first responders that were impacted by it, to be able to get that key bridge rebuilt, and also to reopen that federal channel. And despite the fact that people say this could take 6 and 9 months, I'm proud that we're on track, that by the end of May, we'll have that federal channel reopened, and within days, we're gonna have that massive vessel, the Dolly, out of that federal channel. And I think for people who are concerned about the cost, my thing is this, the American people will be on this. And we just have to make sure that we have to get it done fast and on time and on budget, and that's our focus.
I think
Thank you so much for being here.
Here it is.
You found it?
Well, I found it, I think. Where is
As the hush money trial nears the end, our panel is.
So I don't want it to sound like a fool.
No, don't be a fool. Say,
Did you know you can save with GoodRx, even if you have insurance?
You know, I thought my prescription was covered until it wasn't, but GoodRx.
You want me to ask her for an invitation?
And I still have GoodRx.
I'm on Medicare. I checked with RX because I can beat my copay. You wouldn't like that?
Even if you have insurance, GoodRx can help you save.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
Another good reason to check GoodRx.
I brought in a Max protein with 30 grams of protein. Those who tried me felt more energy in just 2 weeks. Here, I'll take that.
Max protein, 30 grams protein, 1 gram sugar, 25 vitamins and minerals, and a new fiber blend with a prebiotic.
I find Andy every time. Oh, she needs it again. I mean, oh, this is getting updates. You pressed updates.
I pressed what?
It's updating. Okay.
I don't know what that means.
You don't have nothing, me.
Do you have the link or no?
I'm asking her. I sent her a text.
But Opdivo plus Yervoy is the first
Stop me from asking her.
adults newly diagnosed with non-small cell lung cancer that is spread, tests positive for PD-L1, and does not have an abnormal EGFR or ALK gene. Opdivo plus Yervoy is not chemotherapy. It works differently. It helps your immune system fight cancer in 2 different ways. Opdivo and Yervoy can cause your immune system to harm healthy parts of your body during and after treatment. These problems can be severe and lead to death. See your doctor right away if you have a cough, chest pain, shortness of breath, irregular heartbeat, diarrhea, constipation, severe stomach pain, severe nausea or vomiting, dizziness, fainting, eye problems, extreme tiredness, changes in appetite, thirst or urine, rash, itching, confusion, morning problems, muscle pain, weakness, joint pain, flushing or fever. These are not all the possible side effects. Problems can occur together and more often. Opdivo is used with Yervoy. Tell your doctor about all medical conditions, including immune or nervous system problems, if you've had or plan to have an organ or stem cell transplant, or receive chest radiation. Your search for 2 immunotherapies starts here. Ask your doctor about Opdivo plus Yervoy, a chance to live longer.
Certain you can fix that? Yeah. Are you for imprint certain?
Certainty matters. Like 4imprint's promo product experts who work with you every step of the way. Go to 4imprint.com.
4imprint for certain. Are you comfortable with the role the Supreme Court is playing in the 2024 election?
Is there not more that Israel can do to help the humanitarian crisis? Should abortion be the #1 issue in 2024? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. Welcome back. The panel is here. NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell. Simone Sanders Townsend, co-host of The Weekend and former chief spokesperson for Vice President Harris, and Brendan Buck, former advisor to House Speaker Ryan and Boehner. Thank you all for being here. Kelly, let me start with you. Set the stage as we are all waiting for the event on the big stage. The first debate away. Obviously, a lot of big emotions heading into that, which you saw in those two interviews there. What's at stake for each candidate?
Well, talking with both campaigns, they have one bit of commonality. They're happy to have debates and they're happy to have them early. They believe the public will enjoy that and take something from it, and that they believe that voters need to be engaged. From the Democratic side, Biden world believes they have a campaign tactical win here, that they sort of set the terms of two debates, getting a no audience scenario where Donald Trump can't do what he is so good at, is working the room. They also say he'll have to answer for his record, he'll have to talk about reproductive rights. On the Trump side, they're saying, well, but Donald Trump is very good in these moments, and they believe that Joe Biden will have to answer for inflation, will have to show his endurance, those kinds of things. Democrats say on big nights, Joe Biden comes through. So both campaigns are looking forward to it. There are real questions about, will the two debates hold? Biden world says that's a done decision. The Trump side is continuing to say they're open to additional debates and expanding the playing field.
All right, well, Simone, dive in here, because of course we've been talking about the fact that there's been this erosion of support among black voters for President Biden. This debate, the first one will be held in Atlanta. He's obviously delivering the commencement address at Morehouse. How important is the debate, both of them, to him winning back support among key constituencies?
I think the debate is critical because it allows folks to see Joe Biden in his element for themselves. They hear a lot about him on television. They consume clips of him right on social media. But a debate is a one-on-one matchup where there you have President Biden who'll be able to make his affirmative case, but also go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump and do a little tete-a-tete. And I think that's what voters want to see. They want to see Uncle Joe, as people often tell me, whenever I end up in the nail shop. That's what I'm hearing, Kristen. And I think that's going to be critical for them. But I would also argue that campaigning and being out there in the communities, touching the people, again, that one-on-one campaigning, retail politics is also crucial for what voters decide to do when they go to the ballot box in less than 4 months.
Well, Brendan, one of the other pieces to this puzzle is the fact that it seems like they're trying to, if you believe RFK, box him out, box out a third-party candidate by holding this debate early, by holding it before, frankly, a lot of the states have met their requirements in terms of being able to be on the ballot. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think this is one situation we should believe RFK. They are trying to box him out. And the reality is, it's not entirely clear who RFK is hurting or helping the most. And there's a very good argument that he's hurting Joe Biden with his name ID, and there's a very good argument that he's hurting Donald Trump. Some of his positions are very, very Trump-like. So there's not going to be a debate where RFK is on the stage. We've broken free of the commission. Neither of these men are going to allow themselves to get on stage with that person and elevate him because it's just too risky. There's no reason to.
Yeah, Kelly, of course, all of this coming against the backdrop of former President Trump's criminal trial in Manhattan could wrap up this week or next week. It hasn't really changed the dynamics of this race so far.
And just to follow on the note of debates, they tell me on the Biden side, they picked the date that they were looking for to try to be past the trial, with a real question mark about how will it come out. Now, the Trump side says that they feel pretty good about the week they've had in court because they believe that the former president's attorneys were able to chip away at Michael Cohen, a key witness for the prosecution. At the same time, they will acknowledge that this has been frustrating and annoying for the former president to be sort of tied to the courtroom and not being able to campaign. And you've heard him talk very publicly about feeling trapped by that. And the Biden side is saying this is a way for them to be able to set a big contrast because the president will come back from the G7, for example, go into this debate when Trump has been in court.
Can I just say, this should have been a moment where Donald Trump was hurt. It's been several weeks in the courthouse, and we have seen very little evidence that anything has really significantly changed. I mean, this is a person who's potentially going to be found guilty of a crime, and the president hasn't figured out any way to take advantage of that. And this is the same mistake that I think a lot of the GOP nominees or contenders in the primary did too. They just sort of assumed if you let it hang out there, that it would be to their benefit. And it just doesn't happen. I think this is a big missed opportunity for the Biden campaign.
What about that, Simone?
Well, look, I think that Joe Biden and look, the president and the vice president, they are not going to touch Donald Trump's criminal, anything, because some of them are tied to Department of Justice, and Joe Biden has been very clear how he feels about that very distinct separation, given what Donald Trump did when he was president. That being said, other Democrats can, and I think should be
As I said, we get a lot of appointments from the courts. In New York, civil cases are tried in the Supreme Court, in the civil part of the Supreme Court. Sometimes there are cases that are not necessarily tried, but they may be adjudicated in the surrogates court. The surrogates court will do guardianships for people that are under age 18, whereas the Supreme Court do guardianships for adults. So there's two different guardianships. One is called 17A guardianship, that's in the surrogates court or the probate court. The other is referred to as an Article 81 guardianship, and that's a guardianship that takes place in the civil part of the Supreme Court in New York. So what we're doing is we're building this business around people who are injured or vulnerable, or maybe not necessarily injured, but have other issues that prevent them from, gainful employment, or, to be able to take care of themselves. And so we do have clients with all sorts of issues. And these are just some of them here that I put down. Autism and Asperger's, yes. Bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, BPD, borderline personality disorder, manic depressive, developmentally delayed, and we actually have some clients that that have drug addiction problems. So all of these folks that have these types of issues have had trusts created for them by some family member, either a parent or a grandparent. In one case, or in several cases, siblings who inherited money from parents and just decided that, they made, in one case we have where there's two brothers and the parents died. First the father, then the mother, and it was a large estate, and everything was left to the son that didn't have schizophrenia, and nothing was left to the son that did have schizophrenia. So the one brother created a trust for the other brother, and put in some money into that trust so he could be taken care of for the rest of his life. Not all of our appointments come from the courts. Regular people, like all of us here on this Zoom call, create trusts, sometimes for children, sometimes for a spouse. One thing to keep in mind is you cannot create a supplemental needs trust for anybody that is 65 or older. And I think that really is because at age 65, you could create a supplemental needs trust, but you're not going to be able to be on Medicaid, have a Medicaid, stay on Medicaid when you're 65 or older, because you're going to be qualifying for Medicare at that point. So special needs trusts that are newly created trusts. Once it's created and you turn 65, it doesn't matter. But a newly created supplemental needs trust cannot be created for somebody that's 65 or older. So let's move on. Any questions so far? I could stop with every screening if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask. No? Okay. Types of supplemental needs trust. Oh, I don't.
Yeah, my husband wanted to ask you something. I had it muted, so.
Okay. Given that says to me, we have a special needs trust document, but it's not funded yet. So you're telling us, I think, is that it needs to be funded before, in this case, it's our son, before our son reaches the age 65.
Absolutely.
Okay. I just want to clarify that. So that's easy.
Well, here's the thing. You could probably fund it, I'm going to take that back, I'm going to retract that. You could probably fund it after he's 65. Because there's a distinction, I'm going to get to it, that's on this page. There are supplemental needs trusts that are created with an individual's own funds, their own assets, or their own money. So when you have a lawsuit, even a birth injury for a newborn, they win money in the lawsuit. It's the newborn's money, it's the injured party's money. but it goes directly into a trust during the court settlement phase, right? Because the malpractice insurers are not giving, mom or dad a check for $5 million. They want to see that money, and the courts especially want to see that money in a trust, in a supplemental needs trust. And why a supplemental needs trust? Because, as I said earlier, you can't have millions of dollars and be on Medicaid. Well, why do these kids need to be on Medicaid? They need to be on Medicaid because they are so severely injured that any private insurance they have is not going to cover what they need throughout their lifetimes. And, so all the therapies and the medications, the doctor's visits, the hardware like wheelchairs and feeding tubes and breathing apparatus, all those things are very, very expensive. Medicaid will pay for all of it, as long as your money is in a supplemental needs trust. And if you create that trust with the lawsuit settlements from your personal injury or your malpractice, that's called a first party supplemental needs trust. Let me just say this. The first party supplemental needs trusts have a provision, a paragraph in the trust that says, upon the death of the beneficiary, whenever that is, Medicaid needs to be paid back. So a Medicaid lien exists for all these kids and individuals who have these very severe injuries. And if they're on Medicaid for their entire lives, sometimes those liens are like, in the millions of dollars. Just think about it as getting into a taxi cab in New York City, and the meter keeps running, it never turns off for 25 years, and then you die. Yeah, how much is that taxi ride going to cost you? It's going to be $1 million. So the Medicaid lien works the same way. Now, if any of you take your own money and create a trust for somebody and put your money in that trust, that's called a third party. You're the third party supplemental needs trust. And you can create those trusts now, which is during your lifetime, referred to as inter vivos.
We have that.
Inter vivos meaning during a life. You can create a trust for your son, inter vivos, third party supplemental needs trust, and put your own money in at any time. Whether or not your child is on Medicaid, it's not their money. So they can remain on Medicaid, and you don't have to fund these trusts before they reach 65, because it's not their money. It's only in the case where it's your settlement funds.
I want to talk, but I have to.
You need to create that trust and fund it before age 65. If you wait till after 65, you can't do it. So, in answer to your question, I retracted my initial response, and I'm going to say it doesn't matter because it's your money, you're putting it into a trust, you can have any provisions in that trust you want. The third party supplemental needs trust does not have a Medicaid payback provision. So Medicaid doesn't get paid back. Because again, it's not, the beneficiary of Medicaid, it's not their money that's in this trust that they're a beneficiary of. So these people are beneficiaries on two fronts. They're Medicaid beneficiaries and trust beneficiaries. If they're a trust beneficiary of a trust with funds in it that never belong to them, there's no payback to Medicaid. So Medicaid actually loses out completely. And it doesn't matter because it's not the injured party's money, or so that's the difference between the first party and the third party supplemental needs trust.
I see that somebody has their hand raised with a question for you.
Yeah.
Nina, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Nina Pruden. This is extremely helpful. By the way, you are our, Midland Trust is you are our people, so we already have an agreement with you. But you brought up an incredibly important point that is confusing me a little bit, but it must be profoundly confusing to others. So I would just want to stress, when you say something must be funded, something cannot be funded after one is 65, we have, through extensive legal work that's almost killed me, psychologically. because she is not in good mental health, and does not have a very good attorney, I cannot, go backwards and correct his very poorly done, whatever, work, estate work. Thus, if she passes away, the point is that there are methods in which he may be granted money that can only be put in a first party trust because of the fact that these people are not they don't know what they're doing, and they're going to be putting it in his name instead of in the trust name, and therefore that money, if it's put into his first party trust after he's 65, I think what you're saying is he can't have it.
Well, you can have it, but you're not gonna have, the protections that trust would offer you in terms of Medicaid. So.
No, wait, I just wanna step back. What you mean, I understand, a first party trust has a clawback once the individual who is disabled has passed away. I don't care, I mean, when he passes away, they take back money that they've spent, and that's actually fair. But what I'm talking about is if he receives money and he's over 65 and he's still alive, are you saying he cannot get that money?
He cannot get on Medicaid, that's what I'm saying.
Well, but then he can't be protected for all the other trusts he has. I mean, everything he has is based on the fact that he's on Medicaid.
Right, so this is, this borders on malpractice for the lawyer. What state do you live in?
New York.
Okay.
But the problem is my mother is, and I'll hush up and maybe have a private conversation. My mother's 90, she's partially losing her memory. My brother is her power of attorney. He's not the best and the brightest as regards this type of thing. It's complicated because it's an interfamilial situation. So I don't know what to do.
Okay, so she's leaving money, your mother, to your child, the grandchild. And what you're saying is that the money is going to be the bequest when she dies under her will. So your child is going to receive that money free of trust, right?
Directly to his name, and I was going to try to fix that, but she became.
You can, I'm going to interrupt you, I'm sorry. You can fix that. There's a way to fix that, possibly.
Okay.
So the surrogates courts in New York, the surrogates courts retain jurisdiction over all trusts, even those that you may create on your own, having nothing to do with the court. Or if your mother did a will and she hasn't yet died, and that will has these provisions in it that just mess up all of your son's, all of his estate planning that went into, went into it for him. There's two ways around, potentially two ways around it. One is to have the trust or the will, whatever it is that your mother has that leaves money to your son. You could have it potentially reformed. You basically go to court, go to surrogate's court where you live or where your mother lives, and ask the judge. You have to have a lawyer, prepare a petition, and what you're requesting is that the will or the inter-vivos trust that your mother created be reformed. And the provision that's going to be reformed is the part that, either leaves money to your son outright or however it is. You can possibly get that reformed. The other way around it is, when your mother dies, if this is money that's that she's leaving to him under her will, he can disclaim it. He can say, I don't want it. But then it would go into usually the residuary estate and be dispersed or distributed in accordance with the terms of the will as to residuary.
It goes all my brothers and sisters and the thousands of grandchildren. So this is really bad. And the thing is that the problem is my brother is the power capable of doing the right thing.
A power of attorney doesn't really do very much with the will. You can't change somebody's will just because you.
Well, because she's incapacitated incapacitated mentally at this point.
Right, so I would look at this as a drafting error. And you just wanna have that drafting error corrected. It should have been not left to him, it should be left to this other trust that was, let's say, created by you. And, it's possible to get that fixed.
Okay, I'll talk to our attorney, and thank you very much, and everybody be very careful about all this. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's, the courts recognize that sometimes mistakes are made and trust can be reformed or fixed. If it's to the benefit, a reformation of a trust provision that doesn't affect anybody else, only affects your son.
It's her will, it's not a trust, it's her will.
Yeah. So, yes, wills can be reformed.
Okay. All right, I don't want to take more people's time. Thank you so much. I really
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Drew, there's one question in the chat.
Okay.
Are you saying that in a pooled trust, once our child is deceased, the money stays in the trust for others rather than go to our relatives?
So, when you put money into a pooled trust, generally speaking, it stays in the trust when the beneficiary dies. I'm not sure of any way to get the money out. Once it's in a pooled trust, it's pooled, it's in there. And why is that? Because a supplemental needs trust that's a pooled SNT is pooled and managed by a charitable organization, right? So let's say you have there's a pooled trust for your daughter, and you put it with one of the pooled trust companies that are local, Westchester, New York State, and your daughter then receives Medicaid benefits throughout her lifetime, and then she dies, or whatever point in time that is, and there's money left in this trust, it would have to go back to Medicaid, right? But because it's in a charitable pooled trust, and only charities can do pooled trusts, the charity can keep the money. That's the way that works. If you have if you're creating a trust during your lifetime for a child, you're not going to put it into a pooled trust. There's no point in doing that. There's no point. There's no benefit. In fact, it's not a good thing. So if you have a third-party supplemental needs trust that you created for, let's say, your daughter, you could be the trustee yourself. You can go to a small trust company. There are pooled trust companies, and I do work with one of them in particular that will act as a trustee of a third-party supplemental needs trust, or even a first-party supplemental needs trust, and not pool the assets, just administer it as a regular third-party trust in this case.
You can't talk?
The name of that charitable organization is CLC, Charlie Larry Charlie Foundation, Inc., and they're in Mount Kisco. And the woman who runs that, the executive director, is Danielle, it's D-E-N, Urquioli, don't ask me to spell that, I can't. But anyway, Danielle Urquioli, CLC Foundation, Inc., in Mount Kisco. If you have a smaller trust that you can't get a trust company like Midland or anybody else to have this trustee for you, you can talk to Danielle Urquioli at CLC Foundation Inc. You can tell her that Drew Bender referred you. You need a trustee, but your trust is only $120,000, and you can't find a corporate trustee to administer it for you, and they will very likely do that for you. I have a very good relationship with them. We give them a lot of money as a company. I give them money as an individual,
He
support them.
represents Midland.
And they have support services for people with all kinds of issues, Asperger's, autism, whatever. They are a great shop. But when you put money into a pooled trust, it doesn't come out. I don't care what anybody else told you. It's not coming out. And you're not leaving it to other people, especially if, again, child with this trust and they're receiving Medicaid benefits, the idea is that it's a first-party trust that gets pooled. So that the trustee, in this case, it's always a charity, can spend money almost for anything that they don't have to put Medicaid on notice. It takes Medicaid out of the picture for first-party trust. But for third-party trust, you would never want to pool the assets. Doesn't make any sense. There's no benefit to it, let's put it that way.
Tony?
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, Michelle, do you wanna follow up on that?
Yes, yeah, thanks. I understood that with CLC, they want you to put it in a pooled trust, and that at the end of the day, when the deceased is gone, it goes back to you, with maybe a small fee to them, and then you can, have it distributed, according to your will for other relatives. Is that not correct?
That's not my understanding, but they may have some other product. Like I'm telling you that if you call them, you tell them that I referred you, they are a pool trust company, but they will be the trustee, but not pool the assets. They will manage the assets separately, not as part of the pool.
Yeah, I think, I'm pretty sure you're right, Drew, because we have had some contact with them. And they also presented to our group at another time. And,
They have multiple kinds of deals, but they have, for a minimum of 25,000, it's just a typical third party. It goes to wherever you deign the money to go at the death of the recipient.
Yeah, which would be the same as working with us, except that we can't take trust for 25,000. They will do it because you're a charity, exactly.
I mean, they do have alternatives. I think that the pool trust one is done typically where, I guess the money's relatively limited.
The money's limited and the child or the beneficiary is on Medicaid. You put it into a pool trust and they can spend the money on the child without having to put Medicaid on notice. When you have a first-party supplemental needs trust and the beneficiary is on Medicaid, every time you want to spend amounts of money, and there's part of the Civil Practice Law and Rules, CPLR in New York, that talks about when you need to put Medicaid on notice. So any amount that you're going to spend that would substantially reduce or deplete the trust, and there's a schedule of the amounts. If you have a trust that's worth $100,000 and you're going to disperse 5% or more, trusts that are, 200,000 to 500,000, if you want to disperse 10% or more. Let's say you want to buy somebody a vehicle for somebody to be transported in. And the vehicle costs $60,000 and you have $250,000 in a trust. That purchase would stand to substantially deplete the assets. But before you do that, you have to put Medicaid on notice. But pool trust companies don't have